Before we start a unit on polynomials, it's important that we go through first and talk about some common vocabulary that we're going to see. So, first thing, standard form of a polynomial. I'm going to define that as the polynomial written with terms or pieces, that's what I mean by terms, in decreasing exponent order. In other words, x squared would go first, then an x to the third would go before x squared. So it's just standard form, so everyone has the same approach. Second definition, degree. The degree for us is just going to be the largest exponent. And if you think about it, in standard form, my largest exponent is always going to come first. Leading coefficient, remember coefficient just means number with variable. So leading coefficient is the coefficient or the number that is with the largest exponent. Because when we put it in standard form, we're going to have that as my leading or first coefficient. So it's the coefficient with the largest exponent, which will become the leading coefficient. And lastly, we have the constant. My constant is just going to be the number without a variable. It never changes. It has no variable to change its value, so it's a constant term. So those are the first four important definitions we're going to work with as we go through this unit. So if we look down here at the first example, it says put the following in standard form, then identify the degree, the leading coefficient, and the constant. So I'm going to go ahead, we'll do this example later. I want to change it quick, and I want to make it into 3x minus 4 plus 6x squared minus x to the third. That's the polynomial I want to work with. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put it into standard form. So I pick the largest exponent, which is the negative x to the third term, and that's going to go first, and then I'm done with him, and then just start working your way down. X squared would be next, and then x, and we end with 4. So there's my polynomial in standard form. I was also supposed to go through and identify the degree. Well, remember, degree is simply stating largest exponent. So here I'm going to have a degree 3 polynomial. And I was supposed to identify the leading term and the leading coefficient. So leading coefficient here would be a negative 1. So negative 1 is my leading coefficient. And lastly, I was supposed to identify the constant term, and there's my constant term. My constant term is always going to be last in my standard form. Moving down to a little bit more with polynomials, addition and subtraction. I want to make sure that we are able to add and subtract basic polynomials before we try doing more complicated things. So the first example, I have addition with parentheses. If you remember, to get rid of parentheses, technically you're distributing, but here I just have positive 1s I'm distributing. So it's really 2x minus 5 plus x minus 6. I don't distribute anything except the 1s. So this problem is simply combining like terms and getting 3x there and negative 11 there. And that's my answer. If I go to the next one, in the first set, I still have 2x minus 5. I'm distributing, quote unquote, that 1 that's out front. But in the second set, I have to distribute a negative 1 to both pieces. It's amazingly important. It changes both of those signs. So that when I combine like terms here, I just get x and positive 1. When I get to the third one, I'm no longer adding or subtracting. I'm actually going to have to go through and FOIL, or what I'd like to think of as distribution twice. Simply distribute the 2x and distribute the negative 5. So when I go back and do it in order, 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 6 is negative 12x. There's a negative 5x. And there is a positive 30. And if you notice here, we have two like terms that I need to combine. So it's 2x squared minus 17x plus 30. And that right there is my FOILed binomial times binomial. So I have addition, subtraction, and multiplication going on here. And the last thing we need to do, by way of introduction, is look at what does it mean to square a binomial. So if I look right here, squared means multiply by itself. So I have 2x minus 5 multiplied by itself looks like 2x minus 5. So this is, in fact, a FOIL problem, even if it didn't look like it before. So I go ahead and do the same process. Take him to both. That gives me a 4x squared minus 10x. Here I get another minus 10x. And there I get a plus 25. So when I combine like terms, I get 4x squared minus 20x plus 25. And that's my FOILed answer. A lot of times, people will go through and take something like 2x minus 5 squared and just think that they can take the squared to each piece and get 4x squared plus 25. But if you notice, in this case, they're going to be missing that middle term right there by not FOILing it out. So make sure we don't approach it that way. And we always go through, write it twice, and FOIL it out. So there's a basic introduction to some polynomials and terms. On the back of the sheet, you have some problems you need to go through, and make sure you get those answers submitted to the Google form so that we can hit the ground running on Monday.